Welcome to Speedy's Garage, everybody. Today we're back on Project GoManGo here. We're going to upgrade the fuel injectors. And the injector I'm going to use is an Injector Dynamics ID 1000. These have been replaced with a new injector called an ID 1050X. I bought these a while back knowing we were going to eventually put a pulley on GoManGo, and I figured I would need injectors, and I came across these at a really good price, so I picked them up. A lot of people were swapping things around and were doing builds and hadn't quite made up their mind what they wanted, and they were buying and selling parts pretty rapidly there for a while. And so if you paid attention, you could come across stuff like this for a really good price. And so when I saw them, I snatched them up, and I thought if I didn't need them, I could just sell them. But after me and Mike started working on the tune for GoManGo and the Hellraiser 2.72 pulley, we realized this particular car in these conditions is going to need the injectors. These ID 1000 injectors are a one-piece design and are a direct plug-and-play fit for the Hellcat. The new 1050 injectors have a little aluminum top hat that goes on them that makes them fit the Hellcat fuel system. So that's the little difference there. The plug's the same, but they're a little bit shorter and have like an adapter that goes on the top to connect them to the fuel rail. These ID 1000s flow 100 pounds per hour, and the 1050X are similar. All right, we're gonna start by popping the hood, obviously. Hello, beautiful. Now I'm just going to get the coil pack covers out of the way. And the fuel system is under pressure, so you're going to be very careful here. You're messing with a flammable fluid, obviously, so take all the precautions, make sure you're in a nice ventilated area, all the common sense stuff. And to get the pressure off the fuel system, we're going to come to the trunk, and we're going to get into the little power distribution center back here. And we're going to remove the fuel pump relay, which is right here in the very bottom right-hand corner. There you go. And now we're going to attempt to start the car, and it should either not start at all or not run for very long if it does. All right, with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the fuel pump relay so I don't forget. All right, now I'm going to get the catch can PCV line out of the way. If you've got a factory PCV line, it'll run from here over to there, so you probably have to move that to give you some room. And then I'm going to work on these electrical connections. It's a push lock like a lot of these are, so you push up on the little red tab, squeeze, and then disconnect it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that down the whole side. Okay, so really the only special tool you're going to need is a T30 Torx bit, and that's for these two bracket screws that hold the fuel rail in place. Now we did release the pressure, but you still want to be very careful here. I'm sure there's still some fuel in the line, so I'm going to be mindful of that. I've laid down a rag to catch anything that might happen to drip. Now we're just going to loosen these up. All right, we got those two little screws out. Now we're just going to gently pull the fuel rail up to expose the injectors. That should be enough. And now use a flat blade screwdriver to release the retaining clip. And then we're going to pop the injector out of the fuel rail. And here's where you're probably going to get some fuel, so you probably want to be careful. Yep, just a splitch, just a little bit of fuel. And here's a factory fuel injector next to one of these ID 1000s, if you're curious what the difference looks like. All right, when reinstalling your new injectors, make sure to put a little bit of fresh motor oil on the seals, on the little O-rings, to make them go in a little bit smoother and protect the O-ring itself. That back one's a little bit of a pain in the butt to get to, but if you hold your mouth right, you'll eventually get it. And just work your way down the fuel rail, and make sure when you slide them in, just gently push until it bottoms out in the fuel rail, and just snap your retainer in place. It may take you a try or two to get that retainer on there. A little bit tricky. If you have to reseat it, just squeeze it together, kind of put the tension back on it. You'll know when you have it right, because it'll just lock into place. There we go. When it goes on easy, you got it right, and then double check
all of them to make sure they feel right. The retainers shouldn't be under tension or anything. Injectors should not pop out. And then just reseat the fuel rail back into the supercharger and make sure the injectors go all the way in. Once you get the fuel rail reseated, make sure you take a look. Make sure all the injectors are firmly pressed into the supercharger, and then reinstall the little T30 torque bolts. And finally come back and reinstall your electrical connectors. Don't forget to push the lock. And now we're just going to perform the exact same procedure on the left-hand side or driver's side. I did remove the little PCV line that was connected here to the airbox. I removed the power steering reservoir cap to give me some room, and I did disconnect this little line that runs to the top of the throttle body, or top of the supercharger by the throttle body, I guess I should say. And that's just to give me enough wiggle room for the fuel rail. And again, don't forget to put a little bit of oil on the O-rings. And one thing I'll mention, because it's not quite obvious, is you've got a couple of ledges on the injector body. One's kind of big and kind of shaped like a stop sign sort of, and you have another one's kind of smaller and it's just a channel. When you're putting the injector into the fuel rail, if you push it in too far, you'll have a tendency to want to slide the clip onto the stop sign shaped channel. And if you do that, the injector won't be long enough to fit into the bore of the supercharger. The correct channel is the one closer to the top. That's where your clip actually goes. So when you're inserting the injector into the fuel rail, stop right underneath that channel. And watch your eyes when you're pulling the injectors out, just in case they want to spray a little bit. And when you're putting them back on, the plug goes to the outside of the car. Same deal as before, just make sure you fully seat the fuel rail. The injectors should be fully seated into the supercharger. Now just reconnect your electrical connections. Again, don't forget to push the red lock. And then I connected up just a few of the lines I disconnected, like this electrical connector and this line here. And now we want to key the car on. I'm not going to start it. I'm just going to key cycle it a couple of times to accessory and let the fuel pumps kick on and build pressure, and then check for leaks. All right, wish us luck. So I keyed it on to run. We're going to let it set for a minute. We're going to do that a couple of times, just so that we know we get adequate fuel pressure at the rails. Okay, that's 3. So that should be good enough. Let's go check. Okay, I'm kind of feeling for any leaks, any fluid on each of the injectors. I'm not feeling anything on the driver's side. I'm also smelling for any fuel. Check the passenger side. I don't smell, fuel smells pretty strong, so if you got a leak, you usually know it right away. Check that one. Well, I think we're good to go. Okay, with that preliminary check for any fuel leaks performed, I'm going to go ahead and fire the car up. It's probably not going to run 100% happy because we don't have a tune in the car yet for those injectors, but I do want to do a final check for any fuel leaks. Okay, that should be enough. Check her again. Okay, I don't see any leaks. I don't smell any fuel after that quick test fire, but you could hear it. It was definitely getting too much fuel, so we're gonna have to wait for Mike to send us a revised tune. Mike from over at OST Dyno. I've already let him know we put these injectors in, so we should get one pretty soon. So that's how easy it is to change out the injectors in a Hellcat.
It probably took about 30 minutes, so super easy. The biggest pain is just dealing with the fuel. Be very, very careful. As I mentioned, make sure the car is cool, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, and take your time. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Make sure you put the little clips on your new injectors properly. I mentioned that, so there's 2 ledges. You wanna make sure you get the right one so the injector seats properly, and you want it down in the barrel on the supercharger. You don't wanna be able to see any of the gasket or anything like that. The injector should be fully seated into the supercharger, and you'll know when it's there because they'll be firm. They won't move around. If they're not fully seated, you didn't get them set up right. Don't start the car. Don't try to key the ignition on or anything like that until you fixed it. Now, these injectors are pretty expensive, and like I said, I got them on a pretty good deal from a guy who was changing setups. He decided to go with E85 or something, and he needed a little bit bigger injector than this. These are 1015 cc injectors. They're gonna be a little bit overkill for what we're doing, but we'll have a little bit of headroom as well. A lot of people use the 1300 cc Injector Dynamics injectors. They're ID 1300s. Those are good too if you're gonna run E85 or something like that. I didn't want to get too big of an injector because you can get too big of an injector and the tuning gets a little bit tricky based on the fuel that you're going to run. Since I'm planning to run 93 on the street and a race gas at the track, the ID 1000s made the most sense. I also mentioned that they have now come out with a new injector that replaced these, and it's called an ID 1050X. So if you get those, they will be a 2-piece injector, so they won't look quite like these, but they'll fit just the same. They're also pretty expensive. ID Injector Dynamics injectors are some of the best. If you read all their marketing material and things like that, they'll tell you all the technology that goes into them. And a lot of tuners like to use them because they actually provide some tuning information to go with their injectors, and it makes them a little bit easier to dial in. However, if you want to save a few bucks and you're just going to a 272 pulley or something of that nature, you can run Demon injectors. They're a direct replacement. Plug and play, will pop right in. Factory Hellcat injectors are 600 cc, which is about 57 pounds an hour. Demon injectors are 700 cc, which is about 67 pounds an hour. And then you've got these ID 1000s, which are 1015 cc, or about 100 pounds per hour. So that kind of lays it out there for you. And I know one of the things you're wondering as well, if you're planning a build, should you just buy injectors? And the answer is, I don't know. It seems like it depends on the car. You saw where we showed GoManGo here actually needed bigger injectors, but the Trackhawk that I had the data log on from, it had the same pulley, 272, same engine and everything. It didn't need them. So it's tricky. If you're having a shop do the build for you, go with whatever they recommend and whatever their tuner recommends. That's the biggest advice I can give you, or the best advice I should say. Use whatever the tuner recommends. Mike at OST Dyno tries to do things as efficiently as possible. He doesn't want to sell you a bunch of parts you don't need. So he thought we could probably get by with the stock injectors based on his experience. This car, in these conditions where we're at right now, close to sea level, it needed bigger injectors, so we went ahead and took care of that. So keep that in mind as you're planning your build. Hopefully you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net. We're gonna wait for Mike to send us a updated tune for this 2.72 Hellraiser pulley on our GoManGo Hellcat here. And we're gonna get out and do some testing, but that'll give us the fuel system we need to get her dialed in, and hopefully I'll be seeing you out there.